The Constitution of the United States has at least two very serious defects. The first is the provision in the Constitution allowing the Congress of the United States to borrow money on the credit of the United States. This provision is what caused the Congress to create the Federal Reserve, so that they would have a place to borrow unlimited money. The second defect in the Constitution is the absence in the Constitution of any detailed explanation of the authority of the jury in a court trial. This is the most important defect, the failure to properly define the authority of a jury. Because of this lack, the jury trial by jury, has been totally destroyed in this country. It's meaningless, nothing but a charade. Number 38, it is widely believed that the paper money brought into circulation through the Federal Reserve is nothing but worthless unbacked paper. This is only partially true. If the money were actually worthless, no one would accept it. Why don't you try spending monopoly money out of a monopoly game in the grocery store? Because you know it won't work at the grocery store. That only works in a monopoly game because all the players in the game accept it as having value in the game. But you can't take that monopoly money from the game and take it to the grocery store and purchase food or anything else because it's worthless at the grocery store. Federal Reserve notes are not worthless. If they were they would not be accepted at the grocery store or anywhere else any more than is monopoly money. As there is no gold and silver backing Federal Reserve notes, where does the value of the Federal Reserve notes come from? Some will respond by saying that Federal Reserve notes only work because we are required to accept them and because we don't have any other choice. Although there may be some truth in that, there's much more to it. What we actually have in the United States are two separate monetary systems operating at the same time, with one operating to fund the federal government and the other operating to fund the private sector. The problem is both of these monetary systems are using the exact same identical money. The money that is created by the Federal Reserve for the use of the federal government is totally 100% worthless, unbacked fiat paper money. However, this is not at all true in regard to the paper money created by the Federal Reserve to fund the private sector money system. The money created to fund the private sector is backed by the productivity of the private sector borrower, or that borrower be an individual or a business. The private sector borrowers create value through their human productivity. This human productivity is what imbues the value into the paper money created by the Federal Reserve for the private sector. When properly understood, this is exactly the means by which gold and silver coins are given their value. It's not because the gold and silver have any value of their own. As I previously stated, gold and silver doesn't really have any significant value. Aluminum, paper, glass, steel, plastic, all have more value than gold and silver. We could eliminate gold and silver on the entire planet. If all gold and silver were to be, somehow vaporized, we wouldn't hardly miss it. What would happen if all paper were vaporized? What would happen if all steel were vaporized? What would happen if all glass were vaporized? We would really miss all of those very, very badly. But if all gold and silver were gone, wouldn't make that much difference, really. We humans don't actually want the money anyway. What we really want, whether it's gold or silver or paper, what we really want is what we can get for the money. What we want is what is being produced by all those borrowers. All those 70 or 80 million home mortgage borrowers are out there every day working in the society, creating goods and or services that are desired by everyone in the community. If that weren't true, those people would be out of a job. They would have to go find something else to do. Whether they're a mechanic or do lawn mowing or house painting, or whether they're a doctor, no matter what they're doing, they are providing services, and every time they are paid for their services, they are receiving back some of the money that was created to fund their mortgage loan. And then they pay that money back to the bank. The problem is not in the system, generally speaking, but where does the interest money go? It's widely understood properly that when banks fund a loan, the bank does not invest any of its own assets. The bank, the lender at the bank, simply writes a check and creates the money by writing the numbers on a check or by typing the numbers into a computer data file. Either way, it doesn't make any difference. They both have the same value, and that value is substantial. But there is no investment by the bank. The bank isn't investing anything. The bank didn't have anything to invest. The banker simply wrote a check or typed the numbers into a computer file. But the borrower was able to use that worthless money to buy a house. Is the house worthless? Let's be real here. Is the house worthless? The builder of the house had to hire many carpenters, electricians, plumbers, roofers, drywallers, painters, landscapers to build that house. He had to buy the materials, the lumber, the wire, the fixtures, the plumbing fixtures, the electrical fixtures, the roofing, the paint, the drywall. All of that had to be paid for. All those materials had to be created in some factory somewhere. There were a lot of human energy involved in creating all those materials and then assembling all those materials together to create the house. Is the house worthless? Obviously not. But the borrower is able to pass off the supposedly worthless money to the builder of the house, and the builder of the house is happy to accept it, no problem. The builder accepts the payment and uses it to pay all of the expenses of constructing the house. And in a short period of time, the money that was created by the bank by a stroke of the pen is circulating in the community, and just about everybody in the community will have some of that money in their pocket. And they use that money every day to pay all of their day-to-day business living expenses. No problem at all. Where does the money come from? It didn't come from the banker. Where does it come from? Who is it that's actually carrying the loan? There's two questions there. Where does the value come from that makes the money have value? And who is it that actually is carrying the loan? It ain't the bank in either case. The value comes from the productivity of the borrower. What has happened is that the future income of the borrower has been monetized for the next 30 years. If the house was $100,000, the borrower has promised to pay back something like $300,000, $200,000 for the privilege of taking possession of the house on day one without paying for it at that time. But the borrower promised to pay for it in the future. There's nothing at all bad about that. It's good. It enables everybody in the community to have a job. The lumber people cutting down the trees to make the lumber. The people who created the drywall. The people in the factories that created the electric wire. The people in the factories that created the plumbing, the toilets, the sinks, the pipes. The ones who created the windows, the doors, the shingles on the roof. All of those people had a job because of the willingness of the community to carry the loan. It's the community that carries the loan. This is absolutely irrefutably true. The community is carrying the loan. They're honoring the promise of the borrower. As long as the borrower keeps his promise, it works very, very well. But due to the present